Alright, so today I'm going to do a harmonic analysis of the chords of Salad Days by Mac DeMarco. I'm also going to do the rest of this album, but in a separate video, so it's not too much to digest it all at once. Like, each track will get its own video. So, if you already know how harmonic analysis works, then you can skip to the part of the video I'll put in the description so you can get straight to the song. Now, if you're not familiar with how harmonic analysis works, here we go. These Roman numerals up here are derived from the major scale. There are 7 notes in the major scale: do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then do. But basically, so it works the same way with this. So we have our do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, and then we repeat again at the 1, which is another do. Now those are just the notes of the major scale, but we can also build chords off the major scale. And the way we do that is if we assign each of these notes of the major scale a number. So 1 is do. So you'd be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If we do that, this chord, the first chord of the major scale, can be made by skipping every other note. So to make the 1 chord of the major scale, you take the first note, the third note, and the 5th note of the major scale, and you play them all at once. For this one, it would be 2, 4, 6. For this one, it would be 3, 5, 7, and so on and so forth. On the topic of notation, a capital Roman numeral means it's a major chord, and a lowercase Roman numeral means it's a minor chord. So the pattern of the major scale is major, minor, minor, major, major, minor, and then finally we have lowercase here, but we have this little circle, and the circle means a diminished triad. The reason we use Roman numerals is that they are basically a blank template. They're used to see the patterns in music without worrying what the actual note names are. So instead of worrying like, oh, I'm in the key of E flat, so now I gotta know what all the sharps and the flats are, well, using Roman numerals is a way to essentially get rid of that problem. It's the same kind of concept that using a capo on the 2nd fret of the guitar, you can still do the same chord shapes as like if you were doing the open. It would just be transposed a step up. So you can use this generic formula to transpose a song into any key you like. Now, all of these 7 chords, they belong to one of 3 groups. First, you have the tonic group, which is the 1 chord, the 3 chord, and the 6 chord. We call it the tonic because it feels like home, basically. So 3 of these chords, so if you were to go from a 1 to a 3, you wouldn't really feel like you're going that far, and you could easily transfer between these chords. You could use the 3 chords as a substitute for a 1 chord. I don't want to get too deep into that now. Similarly, the 2 chord and the 4 chord are both predominant chords. They serve the same function. Basically, they give us the feeling of going away from home. Finally, we have the dominant chords, which is the 5 chord and the diminished triad 7 chord. These really are leading our ears and preparing us to go back to a tonic chord. So one of the most common chord progressions in all popular music is a 5 to a 1 movement, because our ears just find it extremely satisfying. And now you might be wondering, why use the major scale? Well, I think honestly, one of the main reasons is it sounds good. It's frequently used in Western music, which makes it a really nice reference point, especially to analyze pop music and also music that's just been influenced by Western school of thought. Today's music is kind of a mishmash of influence from all sorts of different cultures. The blues, obviously, is one of the most fundamental influences on modern music as well. But basically, a lot of modern music is a combination of classical and blues influence. And just one more final thought before we get into the actual analysis. I recommend that you have a circle of fifths handy with all of the parallel minors written out as well when you're doing a Roman numeral analysis like this, because it helps you see the relationship between chords that are in the same key and then chords that are borrowed from a different key. So I'll put a link to my video of the circle of fifths in the description. It's kind of like a crash course idea of how to use it. So yeah, now we'll go to lesson. First, I want to talk about the structure of this song. So it's pretty basic. It only has a and B, or a verse, a chorus, and then it just repeats the verse and the chorus again. This is pretty typical of Mac's songs. He only has a verse and a chorus. There's not frequently a bridge that has different chords than that. When he does have something different, it's usually an instrumental section where the guitar does something similar to what the vocal melody was in the first place. All right, without further ado, let's go through the verse. So the verse is a series of 4-to-1 chords here, like 4-1, 4-1, 4-1. Finally, succeeded by this 5-to-1 progression. This is really basic harmony with a strong resolution. The relationship between the 1, the 4, and the 5 chords are extremely strong and present in a lot of popular music. However, he dresses up these basic chords with spicy flavorings. For example, all of the 4 chords have a major 7 added to them. That's what this little triangle means. It just means major 7. I was gonna write out major 7, but honestly, it just saves space. So I like the shorthand notation. And anyway, and then all of the 1 chords have a major 6 added to them right here. These dressings don't actually affect the function of the chord. They still function like a tonic or a subdominant. The 1 chord still feels like home, and the 4 chord still feels like it's going away from home. And then the 5 chord feels like a tension that needs to be released by going back home. Now, I want to talk about the 5 chord here because it seems more complex than it really is. What it actually is just a dominant 7 with a 9 added on top, and then also there's a major 6 added to it as well. Basically, he lets the open B and E strings ring out on a dominant 7 chord. So the added 6th clashes with the flat 7 because they're only a half step away from each other. And normally this would sound really dissonant, and it does sound dissonant, but because it's on the higher up strings on the guitar, it actually sounds pretty nice. So that's the thing about principle about dissonance that's important, is that when you do it in a higher octave, it often sounds like actually good, but when you do it in a low octave, it just kind of sounds muddy. So if you want another example of this chord in popular music, I would check out Sweater Song by Weezer. That's a good example. And now we have the chorus. So this first chord right here might seem like a lot to take in, but it's way more complex than it needs to be, just because the notation is based off of the major scale, and it's just extra. So the number we have here is 7. So it's like the diminished 7 here, but it's flattened. So this tells us that we need to go back a half step. So the 7th is normally just a half step below the 1 chord here, but on here it's going to be a whole step below the 1 chord. What that would actually look like on an instrument, on the guitar, it just means it's 2 frets down. So if your 1 chord was a G, then this root note would be an F. So just 2 down. Then he also adds the major 7 as a dressing, and he also adds the sharp 11 as a dressing. That's really spicy. A lot of tension here. The sharp 11 is essentially the tritone in relation to your root note. It's the devil's interval. All right. So the essence of this chord, though, is that it's just not at rest. It is not a resting chord. I don't know if you would say it has dominant function, but it's not resting. That's why it makes sense that it leads into this chord over here, because the 6 chord and the minor 6 and then the minor 3 chord, these are both tonic chords. Well, they serve the same function as the 1 chord. So we temporarily feel it rest when he's at these 2 chords of the chorus, and you can hear it, that it sounds more chill during this section. Finally, to end the measure, we have the classic dominant 7 on the 5 chord, which is used all the time to promote a resolution. Now, our resolution to the 1 chord is slightly delayed because the first chord of the second verse is the 4 chord, so we don't actually reach our final resolution until we get back here. But the point is that we do eventually get there. And in fact, he actually capitalizes on the strength of this resolution by ending the song with a single lone 1 chord, no 4 chord in between. He just goes straight up from the V, the 5-7, to the nice simple tonic chord. So that's the essence of the song, but I didn't talk about the lead guitar. So most of the notes he plays are the same notes that are in the chords, but they're just at a higher octave and a different rhythmic pattern, and it's just kind of to complement and highlight the tones that he wants us to hear. However, there's an exception here with being part of the diatonic chords. The second to last note in the lead guitar versus melody is a bend from the minor third to the major third. in relation to the G chord he's playing. The minor third is not found in the major diatonic scale, but it is found in the blues scale. Some say that the true blue note actually exists somewhere in between the minor third and the major third. So Mac capitalizes on this specific tension, through a lot of his work. He really plays around with that minor third at the same time as the major third, and that clashing sound gives it a very bluesy feel. And I have another video that I'll link in the description about this topic. So that's all I have for today, and I hope you all enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or you just want to have a discussion about it. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you see the next time I come out with another video. I'll be covering Blue Boy in the next one, so enjoy. Thanks for watching. Peace out, everyone.